It is a big week for Michigan basketball, and we're going to break it all down. Clayton Sayfie with Chris Balas and Austin Fox. We're from the Wolverine.com. You can use the promo code Blue60 to get all of our coverage all week and beyond on Michigan basketball using the promo code Blue60 for 2 months for free. Guys, like I said, huge week. Illinois game on Tuesday, two games with Michigan State on Thursday and Sunday. The magic number is one for a Big Ten title, assuming the conference goes with the win percentage here, because Michigan's only going to be able to play 17 games. But there's a lot on the line. Brad Underwood, though, the Illinois head coach, seems to believe there's not much on the line because Big Ten championships don't matter. I think he kind of sees the writing on the wall with Ayo Dosunmu probably not going to be able to go. Your guys' thoughts first. Chris, you wrote the article on what Brad Underwood had to say. What'd you think about some of these comments he's been making?
I had to go back and make sure it was a reputable news outlet because I thought maybe it was like the Onion of sports or something. Because some of the stuff he said, oh, Big Ten games, these games don't matter, and this is a one-off season, and this doesn't matter, and that doesn't matter. I'm like, well, then what the hell are they playing the games for, and what are you bitching about? About your team not playing Michigan, last month when Michigan was coming off a 23-day layoff, and I guess he wanted him out there, playing right away so he'd have a better chance to win. To hell with the safety, of the kids and everything else. But didn't make any sense to me. He's salty. There's no question about it. And I kind of like the guy, before all the whining and which has been incessant, by the way. It's nonstop at this point. But I remember when I saw Oklahoma State play Michigan in that first round game, guys, a few years back. And it was a 7-10 game, I think, if I'm not mistaken. I'm thinking the neighborhood just got tougher here, man, when he went to Illinois. This guy's going to be pretty good. And he has been. So, he talks about character. Part of character is not being a whiny little what, when things don't go your way. And in my opinion, he's gone a little bit too far with it. At the same time, I like their team. I like the way they play. I thought they got gooned up a little bit at Michigan State. Otherwise, they'd be right in it. And they're a potential number one seed. So that's what's going to be interesting to me is to see, did you play Iowa if he's 80%? Underwood said he wouldn't, but you're still right there, man. And if you don't have to play Baylor, Michigan, or Gonzaga until the Final Four because you get a one seed, man, I would think that would be an awful lot to play for no matter what he says.
Yeah, I don't know why he's so bitter. I went back and watched some of his press conference this morning, I believe it was, and he just seemed pretty upset throughout a lot of it. He's made a quick ascent in the coaching ranks. He was at Stephen F. Austin, spent that 1 year at Oklahoma State, and now obviously he's doing a heck of a job at Illinois. He also played Gonzaga and Baylor earlier this year, or they played Baylor. I don't think they played Gonzaga, but he said he's watched a lot of them, and he said in his opinion there's no question that Michigan is on those two teams' caliber, which I think is a pretty general assessment at this point around the college basketball world. My gut tells me that Ayo Dosunmu is going to play on Tuesday night. Tom Izzo issued
Really?
out an apology, and it sounded pretty fake, and I think a lot of people saw right through it. He obviously didn't play on Saturday at Wisconsin. Illinois still got the job done. So regardless of whether or not Ayo Dosunmu plays on Tuesday night, I think Michigan's going to pick up a win there either way.
Yeah, but it would be a lot easier without him. Wisconsin is a mess right now.
I don't get it. I thought with
Yeah,
their experience and their depth that they'd be a lot better than they are, Clay.
yeah. No, I agree. But for some reason right now they're not doing anything other than Demetric Trice, who is still balling out. But
And his
um,
mom is making those noises on free
oh,
throw stands.
I know.
I hope to God there are no more Trices. All right,
I
continue.
know.
I'm sorry.
We could use some more Wagner's though. I saw a funny tweet
Right?
about Michigan fans just hoping there's more Wagner brothers somewhere. But yeah, the Trices, this could be it for them in the Big Ten. But I mean, back to Illinois, they're a much different team. You played a Wisconsin team that's reeling, and then they beat Nebraska without him. So they're probably going to need him to beat Michigan. At the same time, anything can happen. And Michigan is on short rest, just like everybody at this point. Let's talk about Kofi Coburn versus Hunter Dickinson because that's kind of the headliner, especially now that Dosunmu is questionable. This one intrigues me because Hunter's done really, really well against the better bigs in the Big Ten. When you look at Trace Jackson Davis on Saturday, he was 6 of 19. Luka Garza was 6 of 19 against him, and he was phenomenal going up against them. Kofi Coburn's a little different. He's stronger. He's more athlete than like a technically, savvy type post player. And he's just kind of a beast down there. You remember what he did to that ref last year at Illinois when he celebrated and accidentally hit him. Uh,
Yeah.
so he's a strong dude. It's going to be, 7 foot, he's like 285 or something like that. It's going to be a battle in there, but do you leave Hunter Dickinson one-on-one with him when you know that Kofi Coburn doesn't pass out of the post? The announcers on a game
Right.
last week, it was the Michigan State game, I believe, we're like, yeah, once you pass it into him, you might as well run back on defense because you're not getting it back.
Right.
So that's interesting because Juwan Howard likes to leave his bigs in one-on-one, but if you can just trap him or something and force a bunch of turnovers, and they don't have a ton of shooters on the outside to exploit you, so it's kind of a little interesting chess match that I'm intrigued to see what happens.
Yeah, and Kofi has had struggle scoring over length this year. The kid from Purdue, I keep forgetting his name, the real tall kid at 7'6".
Yeah,
Ivy? Yeah, and then you've got Bingham. He even struggled with Bingham at Michigan State a little bit with his length. So Hunter Dickinson has got to do the job of staying out of foul trouble. That's number one, and make him score over him, and then keep him off the boards. Don't give him those second chance opportunities because still think he's a residual player. This is not a guy where you're going to dump it in and he's going to be like Luka Garza and make a move and score, with some quick little spin move. There's a reason that he's the number 84 prospect in the country when it comes to the NBA. We'll see if he goes. I was talking to Mike Broman, who is an Illinois expert earlier today, and he said, this is if this were 20, 30 years ago, the guy'd be a top 10 pick, right? But the NBA is a little different now. It's the same thing for Hunter Dickinson. So you got to keep him off the offensive glass. How many times have you seen this year where the guy gets the ball and just throws it down like Shaq on an offensive rebound? So, and keeping Hunter Dickinson out of foul trouble. Otherwise, you're going to have a hard time, in my opinion, keeping Illinois off the glass. So should be fascinating. I know that there's going to be a lot of motivation after losing to these guys twice last year. I'm sure you guys remember Iowa Sumo's pull-up jumper to win it in Chrysler last year. And I, for one, hope he plays as long as he's healthy. I really like this kid. I like what I've seen of him on the specials on the Big Ten Network, The Journey, and I think he's a special talent. So, but like Austin said, either way, I think Michigan gets this game. I think they're too good, too deep. They want to cut the nets. And from what we understand, if they do win tomorrow or whenever they clinch it, they are going to cut the nets.
I trust Juwan Howard's judgment on what he chooses to do with Kofi Coburn down in the post. I think a lot of people thought that Luka Garza might have his way with Hunter Dickinson this past Thursday, but that obviously did not happen. Garza shot 6 of 19, and then Trace Jackson-Davis, one of the best big men in the Big Ten as well, shot 3 of 12 against Dickinson this past Saturday. So I think Dickinson is going to hold his own against Kofi Coburn. Once again, Clayton mentioned Illinois' guards. If Sumo doesn't play, there's really not that many others who scare you in a big way. Trent Frazier's not a huge scorer. Adam Miller's not a huge scorer. Andre Curbelo isn't either. So that would be really cool to see Michigan cutting down the nets on Tuesday night. If they get it done, it would be their first championship since 2014 and only their third since 1987 if they do indeed win this Big Ten regular season championship.
I love that they're going to do that because or like cut down the nets. I mean, Chris, you've mentioned this quite a bit and referred back to it, and it's one of my favorite things too about the John Beilein era is he's like, we celebrate championships and we want to get one wherever we can get him because he was so, he's the winningest coach in Michigan basketball history. And how many Big Tens did he win? 2 regular seasons and a couple NCAA tournaments, and he won a ton of games and made national championships, but those championships don't always come, every year or whatever, even if you're a really, really good team. So I love it.
2 Big Ten tournament titles too, and they're a banner up there, and you've got the nets for that, and you get a trophy for that, and that's a big deal. No matter what anybody says, that is the automatic bid for a reason, right? And I think there were some teams, Michigan teams early on that took it for granted. You know who I credit for changing that was Xavier Simpson. He said, "To hell with that," and Derek Walton. He said, "No, I think it was Derek Walton was the first one." He said, "We got a chance to win a banner." He says, "We're not going to lose. Let's go out and win this thing." And they did it. They did it 2 years in a row, right? So it's been. Did they do it 2 years in a row? Yeah, they did it 2 years in a row. Yeah. I'm getting old, guys, but it's fun to watch anytime that you get a chance. And I got to tell you, the atmosphere in New York and Washington, D.C. when they were winning those games was outstanding. So it's a banner, it's a championship. So you play to win. You play to win the game, right? That's how you do it. So, you know what? It starts with the regular season championship, and no matter what Brad Underwood says, his comment today was bizarre. Big Ten championships don't matter. Okay. Yeah, they do. And so go out and get it. Michigan hadn't won one in 28 years. before they won one in the early, or like 2011, I guess it was. And so it means something, and I can guarantee you it means something to those guys in the locker room.
I think you could actually make the case that this year's Big Ten regular season championship means a bit more than in recent years because of how tough the Big Ten is. This is arguably the toughest I've ever seen the Big Ten, right along there with that 2013 season when it was brutal as well. Some people do like to downplay the Big Ten tournament a little bit and say it's not the worst thing ever to lose early and kind of save your legs for the NCAA tournament. But I think most Michigan fans would agree that those 2017 and 2018 runs were some of the most fun they've had as a Michigan basketball fan in recent memory. I think back to the plane crash year, 2017, and how special that was, Michigan beating Wisconsin in the championship, and then in the following year beating MSU in the semifinals before blowing out a really good Purdue team in the championship. And then even in 2019, Michigan fell to MSU in the title, but they nearly made it 3 straight Big Ten tournament titles. If they would have got it done, it would have been the first team in the history of the Big Ten tournament to do so. So the Big Ten tournament is one of my favorite events in all of sports, and I think it's an incredible accomplishment anytime you can win this thing, especially this year if Michigan were to do it when considering how tough the league is.
Yeah.
You mentioned that 2019, almost winning it there. Losing 3 times that year to Michigan State stung, obviously, for Michigan because it was such a great season. They won 33 games, I think, made the Sweet 16, but it just didn't have that because you didn't win the regular season like you kind of could have or should have. And, the tournament and then, not getting past the Sweet 16, you would have been satisfied if you won one of those Big Tens. But I think it was kind of a year where you kind of felt like you should have had, something hanging after that. That brings us to Michigan State, who Michigan will face twice here this week, Thursday and Sunday. This is a chance for Juwan Howard to go up 3-1 over Tom Izzo. At the same time, you just want to win them both for your team this year and move on. They could actually play, if the season ended today, they would be playing them maybe 3 times in a row on that Friday in the Big Ten tournament. So it's a chance to sweep them 3 times. And like I said, that kind of adds something to their season if that's the case. But it's game by game. You got to win Thursday, and then you try to go there and win on Sunday. But Tom Izzo already kind of bringing out the excuse train, as you would expect from him, talking about how tired his guys are after
He doesn't
getting.
make excuses. Don't you listen to the Michigan State media? He never makes excuses.
Right.
Give me a
Right.
break.
He doesn't want to talk about fatigue, and then he started talking about fatigue. So they play Tuesday. Same with Michigan. They played Sunday. Michigan played Saturday. Everybody's on tired legs right now and this time of year with this unique of a season. So they're just going to have to, suck it up at some point. But I do expect Tom Izzo's team to be ready for Michigan. I just don't think they have the firepower. I know you guys have been talking about possibly a split now that they're kind of playing a little bit better. I've been adamant that they're going to sweep Michigan State, but I guess let's start with that. What do you guys expect out of what kind of Michigan State team we're going to see show up?
5 games in 11 days for Michigan to end the year. Okay. And we're not talking about Nebraska here. We're not talking about Northwestern. We're talking about Iowa. You got at Indiana on 2 days rest, Illinois, then 2 games with Michigan State. You know that Michigan State's going to come out and try to beat the hell out of these guys in those last 2 games. So number one, watch yourselves, guys, because there's a whole postseason to go and a lot to play for here. But to me, there was somebody on the message board, and I don't remember which poster it was, that was appalled that I said, I think it was Thursday or Saturday, that Thursday going into Saturday's game, that I thought Michigan could drop one or might drop one. And I still think they can, very possibly will. Maybe it's that Sunday game in East Lansing if Michigan State's playing for the NCAA tournament and Michigan's already got it wrapped. Now, I think Michigan will play hard and still play with a sense of urgency, but there's no guarantee that Michigan State can't pull one out of their butt and win in Ann Arbor. The way I'm not saying this is a good basketball team. They missed some open shots against Maryland, but they've been playing better, and at least they've been playing with some pride. Michigan is a much better team and is a matchup nightmare for Michigan State, which doesn't really have anybody, in my opinion, that's going to be able to get to the rack against Michigan. And when they do, it's going to be all mid-range when you've got Hunter Dickinson there to help. So, but I do think it's possible. I do not subscribe to that theory that it's better to lose a game going into the tournament. I don't care. Only once, I thought, in 2013, that team looked like it was ready. Okay, get me out of here. After the way they lost the Indiana game down the stretch to lose a Big Ten title. And then in the Big Ten tournament, they're just like, all right, let's just get to the NCAA tournament. I thought that played to their advantage, but not this team. I think this team's rested enough, obviously, with a 23-day layoff, that you want to get every win you can, and that includes the Big Ten tournament. So going into the NCAA tournament and make that run. Heck, who's to say, like John Beeline says, that they can't win out? What an unbelievable season that would be. Could you imagine that? And that your one loss comes to a crappy Minnesota team. But let's just concentrate on one thing at a time here, and that starts tomorrow night against Illinois.
Yeah, I don't get the constant excuses from Tom Izzo. We've been seeing it forever, basically, since he's been at MSU. I don't know why the national media people keep singing his praises the way they do, guys like Dick Vitale and Jay Balas. But yeah, MSU is absolutely playing better lately, with the exception of yesterday's loss to Maryland. They beat Illinois and Ohio State in back-to-back games, 2 top 5 teams. Clayton said, I don't know if they have the firepower to beat Michigan, but they're going to come out. I think the game at MSU especially is going to be a lot closer than a lot of Michigan fans think it will be, and I wouldn't be shocked to see MSU pull it out. With that being said, I would predict Michigan to win both games, but if MSU is playing for their NCAA tournament lives, which they likely will be, then we've seen crazier things happen in the past, especially when a team is desperate. So you look at the personnel, and again, they don't scare you a whole lot. Aaron Henry is one of the few guys you really have to contain on their team. Rocket Watts has had an up and down year. Marcus Bingham's been non-existent at times. But again, when a team gets desperate, and especially in this rivalry, they often say throw records out the window when it comes to a rivalry game. Crazier things have happened. So MSU will definitely have a shot in both games. But if I had to make a prediction, I would say Michigan sweeps.
Listen to all those cliches, Clay. Austin's got them lined up. Do you have them written down?
I do, yeah. I have a sheet right next to me, and
that's got a Rolodex.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Good.
I think it would take quite a bit for Michigan State to win one of these games. I'm not saying it can't happen, but what would you guys, expect to see if, let's say, Michigan State won? It'd be probably Gabe Brown hitting 3 or 4 threes, Aaron Henry playing a heck of a game, which he's very capable of.
Well, they got to get their lawyer back first. That's the big thing.
Right, that's one of the excuses. Yeah. Izzo's got the Rolodex of excuses and that's on there.
He knows their offense better than anybody. It just so happens that when he's off the floor, they go on a nice winning streak, right, against big teams. But no, I think Michigan matches up extremely well with them at every position, and I think you would see them bring the physical play like they did against Illinois and Ohio State. And, who knows what the whistle will be in the Big Ten. You never know. I mean, it was ridiculous in those 2 games. With all due respect, I mean, they're good wins, but come on, the hack and whack thing, it gets pretty old. So that's what I would be concerned about. But I think Michigan, this is not a team that's going to wilt against a team like that. They're going to play physical as well. Juwan Howard's going to say, we don't back down from anybody. He played in an environment there when he played that was the nastiest. I can't even tell you what the students were saying, guys. Go and read about it. It was pathetic. It was the most unbelievable thing I had ever heard. They came out of there with a win when they were freshmen. And he knows he's been in that situation before, and he's going to say, this is not a game we lose, guys. You go toe-to-toe with them. They get physical with you. You get physical with them.
Yeah, Juwan Howard gets this rivalry. He obviously played in it. He's coached in it. He's beaten Tom Izzo and MSU once last year at Chrysler Center, so he knows what this is all about. If Michigan were to drop a game, I think they would have to come out and play one of their worst games of the year, and we really haven't seen that from this team this year. They've come out consistent in almost every game this year. That loss at Minnesota being one of the few exceptions. I think MSU would have to play one of their better games of the year, similar to the way they did against Illinois and Ohio State. So if you combine those 2 factors, then maybe MSU pulls one out. But there's no question in my mind that Michigan's going to be ready in these. They're not phased by the moment. We saw the way they responded down in Columbus at Ohio State in that massive Michigan-Ohio State game. They were 100% ready for that stage in that game, and they played outstanding, obviously putting up 92 points. So, again, I think Juwan Howard's going to have this team ready in both matchups here next week.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the last thing for me on this game, I completely agree with you guys on the way that Juwan Howard, he seems to have something over this team where it's like they have this chip on their shoulder, even though they're, one of the top teams in the country. And it kind of reminds you of me not, being around at the time, but what I hear and what I've seen about like the Fab Five team and how, there's not going to be fans at Michigan State, but the way they felt slighted anytime they went anywhere and wanted to, beat those teams. Juwan Howard was, I think it was Isaiah Livers who said last year before the first Michigan State game that Michigan actually lost, but he was like, yeah, he kind of led off our team meeting this week with, talking about the rivalry, and he got emotional talking about it. This guy, the team takes his personality, and he's a fiery guy that has his team playing inspired basketball all the time. You remember that win last year when Michigan beat Michigan State. The first guys to the floor were Franz Wagner, Xavier Simpson, obviously, Eli Brooks. So if Michigan State thinks they're going to come in and try to bully Michigan, I think that Michigan, they're not going to be up for that fight where they're going to actually fight them, but they're going to take it personally. And like you said, they're not going to back down. And it's just it'll be interesting to see if that's the tactic, is to play the goon ball or whatever. I guess good luck, I mean, unless you get guys in foul trouble and
Right.
like Dickinson and stuff. So anything can happen. It's a basketball game. But Michigan will be probably double-digit favorites in both of them. They are on Ken Palm right now. I think 15 for the one at home, and
Wow.
11 on the road, which is crazy. So, do you guys think Michigan is going to get the number one overall seed if they win out here and win the rest of the Big Ten, even if Gonzaga, or the Big Ten tournament, even if Gonzaga keeps rolling?
I think if Gonzaga skips their tournament, then I think there might be some. Maybe people look at that and say, okay, Michigan played their tournament. They did, if they win the tournament and Gonzaga sat theirs out, then I think maybe Michigan gets it. Otherwise, Gonzaga gets it. I really don't care. One seed is the major thing at this point. The whole tournament, it's not like you're going to be sent out west, right? Out west this year means you're going to be playing at Purdue instead of in Indiana, right? Because it's all going to be held in Indiana. So to me, it doesn't matter at all. And frankly, it doesn't matter that they're not ranked number 2 right now. I've had people say, why isn't Michigan number 1? I don't care. I can tell you Juwan Howard doesn't care, but what matters is getting that number 1 seed so that you don't have to play the Gonzagas, the Baylors until the Final Four. But there are other good teams out there, guys, that could be matchup problems for Michigan too. So let's not just assume they're going to get there. It still takes a really good team and a lot of good ball and a little bit of luck. Unless you're Villanova a couple of years ago, to get to the Final Four. So as good as this Michigan team is, they can't be reading the press clippings. I had to borrow a cliche from Austin's Rolodex there.
You're welcome.
Yes, thank you.
If Michigan wins their final 3 regular season games and the Big Ten tournament, I think they should absolutely be the number 1 overall seed. But if Gonzaga wins out as well, I think that the committee would give it to Gonzaga, even though Michigan's resume would be 10 times better than Gonzaga's. Gonzaga beat West Virginia, Virginia, Iowa, and Kansas in the non-conference, but really nobody else throughout the year. But like Chris said, fortunately, it doesn't matter as well. Maybe we'll see a Michigan-Gonzaga or a Michigan-Baylor matchup in the NCAA tournament. And if that does wind up happening, likely in a Final Four setting, I would really like Michigan's chances going into either one of those matchups.
Yeah, it doesn't really matter, but I guess it's something we're media, so it's kind of that type of thing. We just kind of create the buzz. But the last thing, moving on to football, Michigan gets a quarterback out of the transfer portal from Texas Tech, Alan Bowman, who started 19 games at Texas Tech, thrown for over 5,000 yards in kind of that air raid type of offense. Reading into him and watching some of the videos that people are posting about him, seemed to be a very, very good leader there and kind of took over the locker room as a freshman and was the starter, but he's had injuries throughout his career. He had a collapsed lung. He had, I believe, a broken ankle that forced him to redshirt 1 year after 3 games his sophomore year. He's had injuries, but this is a veteran type of guy. He's not going to be the favorite to win the starting job right away, but he's a guy that if he did start, I think you would trust he could at least manage a game and manage the offense. That's not what you're looking for at Michigan. You want one of the, top 4 or 5 at least quarterbacks in the conference. But it's good to add a number there because you had J.J. McCarthy, you had Cade McNamara. I don't think anyone really trusts Dan Villari as the 3rd scholarship quarterback. So at least it's a numbers thing at the very, very least.
I'd much rather be talking about third year of an elite quarterback and competing for championships at this point in Jim Harbaugh's tenure. Let's be honest. Then these are issues that, for example, when Jake Rudock's transferring in his first year, yes, that's a good move. Now let's make sure we're never in this position again, right? And of course, in this day and age, with kids going to the transfer portal, what are there 105 quarterbacks in the transfer portal? I think so. It's insane. But right now, I mean, you have to make the argument that they needed him flat out. They had two guys. Cade McNamara took one hit last year. He was done. It's kind of like Dylan McCaffrey-esque there, where you're not sure, and it's not fair to call him injury prone, but didn't look like a huge hit to me. Maybe he just landed funny, but slight. And J.J. McCarthy, I think, is going to be a great quarterback here, but he's a true freshman. And true freshman quarterbacks in the Big Ten, it's a different game again, than it's been, over the last 20 years. True freshmen do play, but the goal is to win championships. Veteran teams do that. It's not like Chad Henne being surrounded by all kinds of talent here, guys. There are still lots of question marks on this Michigan team. So maybe he comes in, I honestly, it would not stun me if he started the first game in the fall. It would not stun me. Cade McNamara has not been a great practice player. He's had some really nice game moments, but from everybody we've spoken with, he's got a lot to improve upon in practice.
Yeah, I like it for depth, and I wouldn't be surprised either if he winds up winning that starting job. You do need immense depth at quarterback nowadays in case something happens to your starter. The best example of that was in 2017 at Michigan when Wilton Speight went down and the backups performed honestly flat out terrible the rest of the year. John O'Korn was not good. Brandon Peters showed flashes at times, but that obviously didn't work out as well either. You could go back to the Brady Hoke era and the terrible quarterback situations that he had 2014 and with Devin Gardner and Shane Morris, and that was obviously a disaster as well. So you need depth at that spot. Alan Bowman will hopefully provide that at a minimum. I like that he does have college experience in the past. I don't want to call him a system quarterback because I haven't, looked at his stats and his numbers and what he all did at Texas Tech very closely yet, but obviously Texas Tech has been an air raid system in recent years. I think they're still like that under Matt Wells, I believe, is their head coach. He's been there for a year or two. So it wouldn't shock me either if Cade McNamara doesn't wind up winning that starting job. Maybe J.J. McCarthy isn't ready to contribute either, but if McNamara does wind up being the guy, then hopefully Bowman could step in as a backup. And if something were to happen to McNamara, he could provide that veteran experience off the bench if you need him to.
CB, what's the fact that Devin Gardner was the last scholarship quarterback to start and finish his career at Michigan? That's insane.
That is the fact, and that's the fact, Jack, and it's unbelievable. Somebody said, what about Wilton Speight? Well, obviously, he played at UCLA for a little while there, too. So, now, come on, man. Get a guy in here. Somebody wants to stick it out, when he loses his job in the middle of a game, doesn't sit there and complain, and say he's going to hightail it out of town. Be a man and support your teammate if he goes in there and does a good job. So that's where I am. And, Chad Henne gave everything he had, every play. And Matt Gutierrez, even when he got eclipsed, he went and played a fifth year at South Dakota State or something like that. And but he graduated from Michigan. He stuck it out, and I give him credit for that. So, you know what? It is what it is, though. It's different times. And but they need guys in there that are willing to compete, guys that bleed the maize and blue. I hate to say it. That's another cliche, but you know what? Those are the kinds of guys that you're going to win championships with.
Yeah, it's hard to believe it's been 7 years. I mean, that was 2014, Devin Gardner's last year at Michigan. If you would have told somebody that during that time that it would, 7 years would pass before a Michigan quarterback does that again, I don't think they would have believed you. It's Unfortunately the state of college football nowadays, especially at the quarterback spot. You see guys dart around like crazy nowadays, and the transfer portal allows them to do that. You're seeing starters do it. I think Tyler Shuck was Oregon's starting quarterback last year, and now he's transferring. It's basically free agency nowadays, and I think the transfer portal was one of the worst things that happened to college football in recent years. I wish guys would stick around and graduate like Matt Gutierrez did back in 2004, 2005, or whatever it did. They need more guys like that, more guys like Chad Henne, and some others who are willing to compete and battle. Heck, Tom Brady is a great example of that. Bide your time, put in the work, and, let's see what happens, as opposed to guys who dart nowadays at the first sign of adversity.
Yep.
Yeah, and it's funny. It seemed like Joe Milton was the guy that was doing that when he was the backup, and then as soon as he lost his job, didn't want to fight for it, anymore. And I guess it is the state of college football. Anything else on the football team here with spring ball?
Just padded practice on Friday. It is what it is. We hear that McCarthy spins the ball really nicely and so on and so forth. But guys, in a week we'll sit there and talk about guys who are stepping up. And the funny thing is, we can tell you that Joe Milton was the best quarterback, and he was. But then people come back and say, "Oh, you said he was this, 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 and this," and we said, "No, there were no guarantees with Joe Milton. He'd improved. He couldn't have been much worse, frankly. But being the well, I got to be careful what I say here, but being the best quarterback in that room wasn't a huge deal.
Yeah, I'm not going to get excited about anything I hear this spring either, especially after the last few years. It's hard to at this point. You have to be in wait and see mode. There's yet another cliche. There's been a lot on this podcast today, but it's true. I think Michigan fans have been burned by some of these preseason reports that we've heard in recent years, and Michigan just needs to show it on the field. So we'll see if and when they have a spring game and what the team shows in that. But some of the young guys are always fun to keep an eye on, the early and early freshmen. They'll be fun to watch at the spring game. But as a whole, yeah, it's hard not to be in wait and see mode. And you really want these guys to prove it on the field. And hopefully the new coaching staff moves that Jim Harbaugh made will help them be able to do that.
I got to say, it was a lot more fun talking about basketball than football at the end, but there you go. You're muted there.
I'm sorry. Yeah, there you go. It's basketball school, baby, is what I said. But what are you going to do? So I do want to say one last thing. Eat at Spots. Eat at Mason Blue Deli. Support your local restaurants here in Ann Arbor. These guys need you right now. So, but great stuff again today, guys. Appreciate it.
Yep, definitely. And it's March, so it could be a fun month here. Maybe a little more than a month. We'll see going forward. Remember to use the promo code BLUE60 at thewolverine.com for a 60-day free trial of our premium content. We'll see everybody next time.